Welcome to the final webinar in our 2025 Women in Leadership Executive Speaker Series, with this one titled Crossing the Divide, Making an Impact in Career and Community. I'm Dr. Susan Madsen, founding director of the Utah Women in Leadership Project. I'm also the Karen Haight Huntsman Endowed Professor of Leadership in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. Quite the mouthful there, I must say. I'm the host and will be the panel moderator today. And I always like to start by introducing, if you're not familiar with the Utah Women in Leadership Project, and our mission is to strengthen the impact of Utah girls and women. And we serve Utah and its residents by first producing relevant, trustworthy, and applicable research. And then second, creating and gathering valuable resources. And third, convening trainings and events like this that inform, inspire, and ignite growth and change for all Utahns. So we try to do all of our events to really further that mission and the three things that we talked about. I'd like to thank our sponsors, the John M. Huntsman School of Business and also USU Extension, for their support. So I'll jump right in and I'm going to introduce our panelists. And actually, I'll introduce Jennifer first. And then, Jennifer, I'm going to ask you that first question and give us a break between my reading of your introductions about just giving us a little more background on your career path and how you got to where you are now. So, Jennifer Smith is an executive vice president and chief technology and operations officer for Zions Bancorporation. She has a commitment to community service and always has. She has been a leader, an active leader, I should say, in the United Way's collective impact initiatives, creating improved community outcomes in education, health, and income. She's also a member of the YWCA Board of Directors here in the state of Utah and has previously held positions on the United Way's Board of Directors and as the chair of their Women's Leadership Council. I think that's where we met.
Right.
She is also an active big brother, big sister. I don't think I knew that, of Utah Mentor. And in 2011, she received the Women's Philanthropic Network Member of the Year Award and the United Way's Heart and Hands Award. She holds bachelor's and master's degrees, both from the University of Utah and for the Boulder Way Forward, which is a 7-year movement that the Utah Women in Leadership Project is the backbone organization for. She serves as a champion. So welcome, Jennifer. And I would love to have you take just a minute and tell us a little bit more about some of the background pieces of your career that I haven't mentioned and just how has it led to where you're at today?
Thanks, Susan. Thank you for inviting me to be here. And this is a real honor to be on the same panel with Lavanya as well. So I kicked my career off in banking, and I dove right into what was called information technology internal audit at a smaller bank that was acquired by Wells Fargo. And my drive around my career has always been helping communities thrive economically, and with a deep curiosity too about how technology powers banking. Fast forward, I've been in various leadership roles, and now, as you mentioned, I'm the Chief Technology and Operations Officer, or CIO for short, at Zions Bancorp. So I do sit on the C-suite of the companies at the company. And, my journey, Susan, as I think about my career path, the common theme, the string through all of it has been this collaboration, collaborative cultures, engaging with our community, and then driving transformations in the financial services industry.
I love that. I love that you've always been straddling too that career making money, those kinds of things. But with that, and both of all of us, I think, are in that same, but love to just engage, use our professional skills, but also our head, heart, and hands, right?
Mhm.
Making things better around. I love that. And am I remembering right with that new building over in Midvale that you really took the lead for that building? That's a
Yeah,
big space.
it was definitely my passion project.
Oh,
And even though it was a $100+ million project during COVID,
yes.
it
True.
it was such a great distraction of a of around everything else that we were dealing with and creating something for the future. Um, I loved every minute of doing it and doing something that our team would feel really good about. They feel good about working there and our community too.
I love that. And I'll shift now to introducing Lavanya Mahate. And she's a visionary entrepreneur. And I think I've known Jennifer for lots and lots of years, but I think Lavanya, I've known you for probably 5 years. We crossed paths. Um, I know many things about you because I've heard and I've eaten Indian cuisine. But she has been really a visionary entrepreneur who has made a significant impact on the culinary world, specifically here in Utah, with her innovative approach to Indian cuisine. Starting with her mission to share the flavors of Indian spices, she has expanded her portfolio to include multiple successful restaurants. And alongside her business ventures, she has been recognized for her leadership and dedication to empowering entrepreneurs. She's earned numerous recognitions and awards and also sits on multiple boards. So her commitment to giving back is evident through her nonprofit organization, Rise Culinary Institute, which provides free culinary training to refugee and immigrant women from low income families. I love that so much. So, with her passion for food and expertise in entrepreneurship, she continues to inspire and uplift her community through her diverse, I should say, ventures. So, welcome. I would love to have you start by telling us a little bit more about your background as well and how you got to where you're at today. Obviously, you're in India right now, so you've gotten to India on an airplane, but through your career, would love to have your comments.
Thank you, Dr. Madsen. It's such an honor to be on this panel with you and Jennifer. And I've known you for many, many more years. Actually, from the time I worked at the Salt Lake Chamber, I was a big
Oh,
fan.
yes,
And yes,
yes.
so I know
Okay.
that you've been doing this work for a very long time. You're one of my initial role models and mentors.
Thank
So
you. Thank
thank
you.
you for the great work that you continue to do. I think you mentioned my career path, pretty, but to fill in the gaps, I moved from India to Utah in 2001, and I
Okay.
was an immigrant. I was on a dependent visa. I couldn't work, so I went to the university, even though I had a master's degree from India, I went to the University of Utah and did another master's program. And after that, I volunteered at the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce at the Women's Business Center for 2 years before the chamber hired me, and I was the marketing manager. And then eventually I became the director of the program I was an intern at. And so that, I think that really set the stage for me in understanding the community in Utah, in Salt Lake, interacting with business owners, small, medium, and large, and just really very inspired by different individuals, particularly the women who were really, had such a good balance of the intellect as well as the emotional skills that they bring to the table, and created beautiful ventures giving back to the community. And so I think that's where my love for creating community really blossomed. And so after my Salt Lake Chamber period of working there, I wanted to further my own passion for entrepreneurship and for Indian food and for marketing. So I started a line of spice blends and I had them at the farmers market in 2010. Then they did really well. The following year, I started my first restaurant, Saffron Valley in South Jordan.
So
And
good. I'm just going to stop you there. I have had your food. It is so amazing.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so that's how I started.
Well, thank you so much.
You're
And
so
I have a series of questions that I'll ask, but to those listeners, if you would like to put questions either in the chat or the Q&A, I'll be looking at those and we'll be working those into the conversation as well. And so we do have a question already. Can you share the name of the restaurant again? So
It's called Saffron Valley, and the South Jordan location and the Sugar House location, 2100 South and 500 East, are where I'm at mostly.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. So today we'll be talking about, I mean, the title of this again is Crossing the Divide, making an impact actually in both career and in community. So I want to start today about really, let's start on the business side. So, what do you love about the work you do, the paid work? Let's start there in your business environment. It's obviously motivating you both. And why is that the case? Jennifer, I'll go back to you and have you take
Yeah.
a stab at this.
I just want to say the masala dosas at the Sugar
Mhm.
House location are amazing. So I don't want to get too fixated on food, but I am hungry.
Yeah.
So, all right. So what I love about my work, so there's the nature of my role gives me a chance to drive meaningful change within our organization, and it's just pretty simple. Uh, it, it's not simple. It's complex, but the reason
Yeah.
we are driven for change is our customers' needs are constantly changing, and so we have to constantly be changing ourselves. And we know that is all about how people engage in that work and how they feel passionate about it and how they see themselves as being part of it themselves, which is the same out in the community as well. So there's that aspect, but from kind of the inspiration I draw is every day. I'm all about opening our talent pipelines, and more ideas, the more diverse ideas, the different perspectives, the better. Our performance gets stronger, and engaging with the stories of our team members, and they inspire me every day. So that's
Yeah.
what motivates me, but it's very internal. It's like seeing, as a kid, and I'd see a dingy wall and I would pick up a paintbrush because someone needs to do something about it. So there's not a lot of external motivation. It's very much internal for me.
I love that. And before I go over to Lavanya on this, I had forgotten to mention today, usually I wear plainer clothes, but I'm feeling a little brighter today. But I have my Utah earrings on and my Utah necklace. And I want, since we're talking a little bit about entrepreneurship, we need more jewelry for women that have Utah. That's what I wanted to mention. So off the topic a little bit, but wanted to mention that. So same question over to you, Lavanya. In the business and in your more paid, and I know it's hard to separate those sometimes. I mean, what do you love about that business environment and what's motivating you?
Well, I mentioned briefly that the reason why I got started in the food business is to further my passion for entrepreneurship, for Indian food, and for my love of marketing, which is where I have my master's in. And having grown up in India, food was a big part of my childhood, and so it was ingrained in me from a very young age that I love to cook, I love to serve, I love to, interact with people and create that sense of belonging and community around food. So I had to do a lot of deep soul searching in 2010 to actually find that food is what I wanted to do, to love what I did, and to do what I love. So that definitely was the starting point, but my purpose has evolved over the years into purpose, and then to devotion, and then to just a way of life. So it's what I'm thinking about,
Mhm.
and love being in the food industry, doing what I do. It gives me creativity. It gives me the
Yeah.
opportunity to serve people through food, to provide employment, and then to help other women get started just the way I did in the area of food. So, yeah, I definitely wake up every morning, thinking, what can I do to make today better, for myself and for people around me.
I love that you said that because that's when we know, and not that every morning's like that, but that's when we know we're in that deeper space of purpose, even if it's paid work, which is awesome, right? When we get up and we look forward to it and our minds start thinking, oh, it's fun for the mind, right? Not every day though. There's some grueling things, right? Um, so I really appreciate that. You're both, of course, involved in the community. I read your backgrounds. Lavanya, let's start with you. You and have you I really talk about the organization, the nonprofit that you started about immigrant and refugee women, and why it feels so important, to be in this space.
Yes, it was about 2018 or 17 towards the end that there was, as we all know, there's been a shortage of labor, especially in the restaurant industry. And as I had five, six locations, actually seven at the time, and I always wanted to train more people to work in the restaurant business. And I know that that was a problem across the industry. So I wanted to do something both for our own restaurants as well as the industry at large, to train people and to help place them at various restaurants. And just when I was really thinking about that idea and how I make it happen, Asha Parekh, the then director of the Utah Refugee Center, approached me and said if I wanted to be an operational partner in a kitchen that they were planning. And I said, I think it's truly when you have the intention and you want to do something real bad, the universe has a way of aligning things. It's definitely one of those moments. And so that's where the collaboration started. However, like you said, life, doesn't exactly happen as we plan. So we had to adapt. But initially, the kitchen was supposed to be at the Salt Lake Community College, and then the college sold the campus at Meadowbrook campus. And so we ended up putting the kitchen in Sugar House next to Saffron Valley Restaurant, which worked out great because then it creates that hub of
Yeah.
restaurants, and it's centrally located. So it took us about 4 years to build that kitchen because of COVID and the delays in construction, and the rising costs. So 2022, we had the soft launch of the kitchen. In 2023, last year, or the year before, 2023 is when we launched the kitchen. And last year was the first year of programming. So we had nine wonderful women from different countries go through the program. It's a 3 months hands-on culinary training, and then we help place them at various restaurant partners for a paid internship. So it really gets them started in the culinary field to be a chef or a front of the office, because most women refugees, they have a lot of barriers, as we know.
Yep.
English, speaking English is one of them. Transportation, childcare, housing, yeah, any problem we
It's
can
not
think
just
of. They,
one.
yeah, yeah. So it's hard for them to think, have that spark within them ignite and to do something that they want to do and have that financial and personal freedom, which I gained through, the opportunities I had and the mentors I had. So now that I'm in a place to do that for other women, it's like serving my younger self is how I see
I
it.
love
So
it.
I relate to all the problems they have, and so I think it's a wonderful way for me to give back, and it's a full circle experience. But I will not be able to do this without the support of so many donors and sponsors and volunteers and board members and just mentors and friends in general. So it's been a great, great project. It's called the Rise Culinary Institute, and very excited. We just started our first cohort for 2025, and we had 12 women. I think we'll end up with 8 because there's a certain dropout rate, and we try
It's
to
a
understand
commitment.
what.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, and for 3 months to not give up their working job and to come learn a new skill so they can look investing in their future. But they're very bright, and they're just so grateful to have the opportunity, and it's free for them, and they have a lot of fun, and they are networking, and they build this community and belonging and connection, which is beautiful to see. And they are honing not just their culinary skills, but also their personal skills of self-reliance and confidence, and just creating a better future for themselves and their generations to come.
Oh, I love that so much. Thank you. And someone had written a note. I went to Rise Culinary Institute recent graduation gala at the end of 2024. And I've been planning and attending similar events in Utah for 20 years. And I've never seen I'm going to get a little teary eyed. I've never seen anything more inspiring or joyful than the women graduates and the love and celebration that night with their families and communities. So,
Oh,
wow, that's
thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, that's.
The older I get, the more teary-eyed I get very easily. So, but the good thing is I can talk through teary-eyedness. Some people can't. So, and someone's asking volunteer opportunities. We won't have her talk about those right now, but what we can do in the email that we send after if you can send us some information or the links to the volunteer opportunities, if you signed up, we'll get that to you, and you'll get that within a day or two, and you'll have that link as well. So Jennifer, your community work is much different, but you intersect in areas of poverty and low income in some of your work, but also in just helping more women find their voices and us move things forward for women to even be leaders at top levels. So it really spans. Talk a little bit more about what you do and your passion around that.
Mm.
I know, big question. Big question.
Where do I start? Um, the passion around women's engagement is, I think we all, probably everybody who's on this call, recognizes when women's voices are heard that there are better community outcomes. We know that. Your research, Susan, shows that. And but I also think that women's contributions are underappreciated, and that gives me some motivation. But let me explain what I mean. So in Utah, we are ranked appropriately so for some of the that best quality of life, the best state to do business. So every time a new ranking comes up, we're right up there. We're number one. Social capital, we're number one. Yet we're in last place for women's equality. And so there's a little bit of a conundrum in these rankings, and I would posit that the reason we're number one in social capital is there's a lot of community work that women are doing that's not recognized. We see, again, this is, I think, research from WLP, is CEOs in the state of Utah are, under 10% are female. For nonprofits, it's over 50%, right? And so we're giving so much to build this state, and our voice needs to be heard in some of those halls of power, including the executive ranks of companies, in government, in politics. Um, and at the same time, we also need to invite more men into that work. And, I had this experience where a fabulous person, a man, was just commenting on how much our young men were struggling, young boys were struggling right now, and was kind of juxtaposing that against all this work that is being done in the state to support young women. And the question, really, the implication of, can you shift some of your focus to go help young boys? And that just draws at our heartstrings. We have sons and we want them to be successful. But I think the question really is, what can you do? How can you
Yes.
engage to help these young men and these young women be successful? How do we start sharing that burden? Because having a career, building up our communities, building up our companies is exhausting at times. It's really rewarding, but it's exhausting. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity, and that's what I want to give more voice to and to highlight is, how do we all do this important work together, and that nurturers are men and women and breadwinners are men and women. Those in the power halls of power are men and women. And so that's what's important to me to do.
I love that. And I want to make a comment about that because one of the things, at least once or twice a week, I'm talking to someone and I highlight maybe they're doing work in the boys and men. I'm like, okay, I'm doing the work in the girls and women, and that's critical. We have to have this work and we have to do more. And we need someone, other folks, to really hone in to the boys and men. In fact, I would love to see lots of research coming out about our boys and men, just like that's not my role. I'm passionate about this. My researchers are on this. And so, but one understanding has been diluted in Utah recently, and that is that when you do things for everyone, it doesn't serve people as well. That's okay to do some of them. It is absolutely critical, but the research is so clear that when you see differences and you serve, and there's a lot of difference. I mean, you look at the data on young men and young women and how they're engaging and in social media, very different. Those are very different conversations. So let's learn and serve people by their differences. Sorry, I just had to say that. And there's just so much support around that as well.
Mhm.
So let me go over to back to Lavanya. So there's research, of course, around things that many women struggle with. Things like women, we're socialized not to claim our achievements. uh we're socialized to build rather than like leverage relationships and various things. We have habits as women that we're socialized around. Do you, Lavanya, talk a little bit, just give us some of your thoughts about that? And I'm sure that some things are across all women, no matter what country, and then some are unique to culture, right? That's a big question too. I'm asking really big question. Give us some of your thoughts around any of that.
Definitely, yes. I appreciate that, and it's funny that I'm in India while I answer this question. Speaking about cultural relevance, I grew up in India in a very patriarchal family, so that's what I that's my entire life, and did not know um, that was restricting or suppressing or not helping me reach my potential because I didn't know anything different. So that was what, and that's how I think a lot of women across the world is what I learned, having talked to many women about the subject. But when I lived in the US and I had the freedom to start my own business and to expand creatively, I then realized the value of having the freedom of choice in all areas of your life. Having the freedom of choice and ownership in all areas of your life is something that is not available to many women, even without their own knowledge. So I think and I have used, the tools of self-awareness and self-reflection to really gauge what is it that I want rather than just doing what everybody else around me is expecting, whether it's family, society. So that has been very freeing. And that's what I encourage everybody, all men and women, to have that freedom of choice and ownership in all areas of life. So that is very freeing. And then from that, you get to do what you want to do. And then when you can align your body, mind, and spirit, which is getting our intellect and our emotional intelligence in line, we can achieve whatever we want to.
I love that. And I've done work with women in lots and lots of different countries, probably 60 different countries. And it's so fascinating. A part of my question, and I'll see if Jennifer wants to respond to any of that, that we as in the gendered environment, whether patriarchy or a little bit less, have some things that were socialized, like when people tell us that we're doing well, we on something we give credit to other people or we don't claim those achievements, or we struggle as women often to leverage those relationships. Jennifer, any thoughts around those and other things as well?
Yeah, I it's such a good question, and I'll just say for myself that I I like to acknowledge the team, and I like to
Yes.
acknowledge the
Yes.
great work that they have done, and learning to feel comfortable that my contributions to something are important to recognize, and not be boastful, but being able to just claim the work that I have done, is important, because what I've seen is in some forums we'll get and go, and there'll be a lot of dialogue about what everybody's accomplished, and I'll think, well, I did that part, or I did that
Yeah.
component, and it wasn't part of the discussion. And um, with some self-reflection, I understood that this, earlier on in my career, this was an area that I needed to focus on, and I still find myself having to be aware of it, and find what is the way I feel comfortable sharing what's going on there. I think some of the other areas too, that we can pay attention to is we are really good at building relationships,
We are.
and I I feel so fortunate for many years, mostly from being out in the community, of being able to create relationships with both of you in other forums, which has been fantastic. But we don't always think about where do we share common interests that we can advance something. It's not just the relationship for the relationship's purposes, but when we have trust and we have mutual interest and seeing something change, how do we work together to actually drive that to a different place,
Yeah.
which is more like strategic
Yep.
networking and relationships, and not just the relationship itself.
This you bring up an interesting point because that relationship is fascinating. When I talk a lot, I talk, in different places, I talk about you can network or you can do developmental networking. And that means that you gain things, you mentor, you're actually getting better at things. It's not just socializing. You're
Mhm.
bringing up an interesting point that we've got the developmental network. Let's network so that we can learn and grow.
Mhm.
let's do that, but let's also
Yeah.
use that strategically
Yeah.
to lead change, whether it's in the community or in some ways in your own organization,
Absolutely.
right?
Those are, I agree with you too on the development networking as well. I think the two of those elements are really important, and it leverages strengths we already have. It's
True.
just being intentional about how we use those strengths and not feeling like there's something icky about it,
Yeah.
like self-serving. It's, hopefully there's equanimity in those kind of relationships.
And I still struggle with that. I still struggle utilizing networks for what I perceive as for my gain. And then I have to tell myself most of my work is not for me. I wouldn't do that. So I have to do some self-talk. Lavanya, you're nodding. And I also want you, I want to hear both of your perceptions on this. And then I'm going to start pulling in. We've got some great questions coming in, and then I'm going to start doing that. But both of you are just so amazingly good at building collaborative cultures with empathy, with trying to understand diverse cultures. And diverse can mean various things, but the top thing we think of, Lavanya, and when we're doing diverse cultures is people from different countries, refugees, immigrants. Yeah, talk a little bit about that. Talk about um, why that skill to build collaborative cultures is really important for women. I think it's important for men too, just to say that, but for women.
Yeah, because I think the age-old saying of when you walk alone, you can go fast, but when you walk together, you go farther. That is so true, even in this case. And it's so much more fun when you have a community working towards a common cause, and we share the same passions or values, or have something, a commonality that is flowing through. And I think one of the things that women especially could do better is to just ask, because I think asking for help sometimes seen as
Yeah.
a weakness, which it is not. I have always asked for help, and it's served me well. So asking for help, and then
Uh, uh,
y-
Real quick,
yes,
asking for help
yes.
from colleagues, coworkers,
Yeah, through those
kids,
different
who?
everybody,
Oh, okay.
anybody, right? I think we should yeah, we should recognize the needs, and separate ourselves from the cause. Like you, Dr. Madsen, even I had this because I was an entrepreneur and I started the nonprofit to raise money for the nonprofit. It somehow, it just I had to work through all of that and do a lot of self-reflection and separate myself from the cause. And also, yeah, I mean, I think it's great that we get to be catalysts for great causes, and so to recognize, to give ourselves grace in doing the work that we do and that we are interested, and that we're giving them an opportunity to do something good and larger than ourselves too. So I had to shift my perspective on that, as well as all the recognition and the praise that we get. I attribute it to a divine grace, because otherwise the imposter syndrome sets in real quick, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get, and
That's
then that has helped me accept that praise with grace. And
mm,
so, because we all have skills and we all have talents and we all have qualities that I think are divine blessings. So we attribute it to that. And same with the failure as well. So I'm like, I'm just doing, what my best, and I take failure and success pretty much the same way. Yeah.
that
Very
is
neutral.
awesome. Someone actually had sent in a question a little bit ago about tell us about your National James Beard Foundation recognition. And they said they're so thrilled for you. So just, and this is what you were saying was so uncomfortable having you talk about recognition for you. But talk about that for a minute.
Well, I was just so it was a surreal moment when someone I know texted me and said, "Congratulations on your James Beard." I thought, "Is this a joke? Do you have the wrong number?" But then I looked it up, and it was for um, semi-finalists for 2025 James Beard award, Rest Chef and Restaurant Awards for Outstanding Restaurateur, which is kind of the top
Oh,
tier of restaurant awards. And I am just so honored, grateful, thrilled, and it feels like, honestly, I felt like, wow, this is kind of the highest recognition that I will get in this field. So it was like, yeah, I had to do a lot of like own self reflection and how hard we work,
yep.
and what is it that for? Like, is it trying to fill in a deeper emotional void, or I mean, that was the case a
It's
few years
interesting.
ago. And then I had to step into more soulful entrepreneurship and coming from a place of soul rather than from my ego, which is for accomplishment and such. So, but it feels very, very humbling and honored to have been recognized. And I think, it's again when your passion becomes your purpose and you love what you do, people see that and they recognize that and they love when you do what you love, I think. So, thank you.
That is such an interesting thing you said in terms of I've had to do that for myself too. And early on, I'm like, I don't need to do the awards or whatever. And then people are pushing me that this brings recognition to the work that you're doing. But there's this voice that says I shouldn't get recognition. But I love that you talked about challenging ourselves. Like, are we doing the work for recognition? Are we doing it for our ego? And if we are, a lot of people do that. But that's okay. You
Yeah,
know,
you
if
have to
it,
start somewhere. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine.
And but to understand that, that's what you were
Yeah,
talking about, right? To
yeah,
understand that.
yeah.
So interesting. Um, and then Jennifer, I just want, yes, some thoughts on that. Well, any thoughts that you have, but back to that question of you really are known for that collaborative culture, having empathy around that. Just talk about those skills. Yeah.
Yeah. First, I just want to highlight, just following up on Lavana's comment. What I was really taking from that um, is to shine your light. And we've been given certain gifts, and we don't do anyone well by not letting a light shine on those gifts that were given to us. And how do we give those to someone else? And everyone has a different view around that, but that comment really resonated. And I think in a collaborative environment, what years ago, almost 20 years ago, I had a lot of exposure to. I was traveling in South Africa and had some exposure in every kind of different form you can imagine, whether it was in the shanty towns or in kind of meeting with business women or meeting with those who had been through the horrors of apartheid. And they really focused, every single person had this concept of Ubuntu, I am because
Yeah.
we are,
Yeah.
in the way they saw the world. And it was really transformative for me. It changed the way I thought about my own leadership, because the collaboration is truly because I see a kind of connectedness that exists between us, and that I have to honor that. Um, to honor ourselves, we have to honor that in other people as well, and that recognition that um, somebody's who has a very different opinion than us, there's some richness there that we may want, that we will benefit from pulling out. So it starts not with a business purpose of why we're collaborative, but more around just kind of, we're part of humanity. So of course we should strive um, to recognize that value in one another. I think for women, having those environments though becomes, particularly as you climb in your career, and you may start to identify with this. You kind of you may be the only in a particular environment, and finding those networks and that can support us when we're going through different challenges, when we don't have people at our immediate fingertips who've been through the same challenges, where we have we feel comfortable being highly vulnerable with. It's really important, I think, for our well-being and for our growth, and to also help us just celebrate what's great about one another as well.
I love that. And one of the things I've always respected so much about you, Jennifer, is that you really are in the abundance mentality instead of the scarcity.
Mhm.
And so that abundance means, and in the bolder way forward that we're doing, the partners that are coming in that are really partners have the abundance mentality. You're not helping just that you're helping doesn't take away from your work. It doesn't take away from your organization, maybe your nonprofit or your organization, either one of the, that it adds, that we can add. Abundance means that we can collaborate. But I still connect with groups sometimes that say, well, I want to just do this and can't really do that because there's a competition. And
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not a competition.
Right.
It is helping everyone. And so one of the things, just one more thought here, one of the things that I've challenged myself to do is when you're in the growth mentality instead of the fixed. Growth mentality, when people get an award, like we were just talking about, or a recognition, we feel happy for them. We
Mhm.
get excited. We want to be part of their celebration. The fixed mindset, when we feel, I've had to work, we all have to kind of work with ourselves, right? When we feel that it's either or, scarcity, like they're getting it, I'm jealous, whatever. So
Yeah.
all of these things are just interesting. And you two are such good examples of abundance mentality and growth mindsets, because we can do our work, our restaurant, right? And we can help others be successful in their life. And maybe they'll work for your restaurant, or maybe they'll start their own, right? And that's okay in the future. So I'm talking yapping a little more than I usually do, but good insights. So there's been a few questions come in, and I want to bring a few over. There's a question: is there any real effort to acknowledge and address the issues that both men and women face as a result of the patriarchal society? And I think that's an interesting question. Yes, a lot of work that we do at UWLP, a lot of the discussions that we're having. But if you'll watch, I think I published it in a Forbes piece. Maybe it was, I say recently, but it could have been like 4 or 5 months ago, on health outcomes and sexism. Fascinating. I want to take the time to go through. It's but more sexist societies, or individuals, that's what they looked at, men and women's, that when they have more sexism tendencies, there's a health, if women feel more sexism, there's health issues. There's actually health issues. There's more stress. There's all of those. Um, and men don't feel it as much. So, but we know that it does impact families. It does impact. So I think this comment is really interesting. If either there's other questions, but if either of you want to jump in, there's an impact on society when you have unequal, what's the word I'm looking for? A power relations that's very broad. Men have more power than women. It impacts families. And Jennifer, you know the stats on
Yeah,
this. We have higher violence rates because of that.
we do. We
Any
do.
thoughts?
Yeah, this question around patriarchy is really an interesting one, and there's the power I think talking about it from a standpoint of power and understanding that anytime we think about power over, it's not a healthy
Yes.
dynamic at all. Power with is a healthy dynamic to have in place. I think too, though, that um, sometimes within that, if you start to dissect the term patriarchy, I some people look at that term as more of I'm a caretaker and I'm supporting my family, or am supporting the community, and um, so it can sometimes be a little bit charged, a charged word, not recognizing that some people have a different view of as a caretaker. And
Yep. Yep.
what I would encourage us to think about is the power element, and
Yeah.
being
Love
able
that.
to think about the power dynamics at play, and also where's the opportunity to raise awareness that these traditional norms um, sometimes will serve families well, but as a society as a whole, opening it up so women can choose to be the family breadwinner, because
And
whatever
they
the
are. They
dynamics
have
are,
no choice a
we
lot of
have
times.
to in this economic environment,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we find satisfaction in our success, or and then there's so many. My husband, for example, is a he's a caretaker, and he's been home with our family
Yeah.
for most
Oh,
of our career. He teaches
I love that.
as well, but it's everyone has different
Yeah, but
dynamics at play.
I love that power with. Now I'm going to pivot, Lavanya, over to you because you on this other question, because I want to fit in a couple more questions, and I'm looking at the time, and we only have a few more minutes. You have had a few degrees in India. You went back and had another degree. This question actually, I mean, education, higher education, graduate degrees is critical for women in so many ways, making higher money, all of those ways, not just about money, but about how we connect to the community. The question, however, was, and I'm sure that you believe, I mean, a lot of men in the United States specifically are not going to college as much because women are coming, and you talked about equal. Um, so I would expect that you all would agree with me in saying higher education is critical for men and women. And you have, I'm sure, seen so many benefits of your getting your degree in higher education. Thoughts?
Absolutely, yes. And as you might know, Dr. Madsen, in India, the middle class is the largest class of people, and education is the number one priority, which is why we've had, this large wave of software engineers immigrate to India in the late 90s and 2000s and continue to do that. But education is very important for us culturally as well. But what it gave me is really the competence, and in the subject where I studied mass communication with PR and corporate communication, and I get to use that every day. What I learned from higher education, and so there's and just the confidence, to be able to have the discipline to go through, certain number of years to qualify in those subjects is priceless. And so I think education is really the solution to, especially in India. It's been said that education is the answer to poverty, like people who are unable to break that cycle
Yeah,
of poverty. And I think in
for
the
all of
US
us.
context, yeah, I think it's the solution to break so many things: ignorance, unawareness,
Yeah.
and collaboration, and build a more equitable society. I think I am, I'm definitely a big fan of traditional education, and, higher education. As much as we know these days, younger people think that a YouTube education is good. It
Oh,
doesn't give you the time or the experience or the mentorship of professors to actually do something meaningful with that education.
I love that. And one of and I'm going to skip this question, but I had one other question about why it's important for women to support each other. And I think I'll just leave it there that we support each other. And most of the women, I think all of the women that I've had in these 10 webinars this year and then 10 last year are women who lift and support each other. And that's what we need to do. I've just got another minute, so maybe just 30 seconds each. What are some final thoughts? What are some final thoughts or final resources that you have? If you have a really good book that you would recommend, Lavanya, I'm going to have you start, and then I'll have
I'm a
Jennifer end.
big, yeah, I'm a big proponent of, building a strong foundation of self before we build success around that. So, and the way I have come to do that is by aligning your body, mind, and spirit simply to keep them in the best form and shape, whatever modality you choose. So, exercise or diet, and because a healthy body gives a healthy mind and a happier spirit. So, when we can be in that space, our thoughts are better, our feelings are better, our words are better, our actions are better, and our results are great for everybody. So take care of yourself and build a strong foundation of self.
Good reminder. Excellent. Jennifer, final thoughts.
Yeah. Uh, my thoughts are you may not get invited to the table, so make sure you find your own place at the table, and whether that's in your community, at work, and then invite others to the
Uh,
table.
oh, so good. Thank you to both of you for joining me today. I've appreciated each of you so much today. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Susan.
Bye
And
bye.
Bye.
thank you to everybody. I'd like to thank our sponsors, the John M. Huntsman School of Business, USU Extension, again for making it possible.